The Cubs win the series despite losing a marathon game on Sunday. We break it all down and more now.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Alongside Sam Olber, I'm Matt Cozy. Pleased to be with you for another week. And please support the show and be a part of the Locked On Cubs community by following on all audio platforms. And you can watch, subscribe, and leave a comment on YouTube. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. Sam and I are lifelong fans, taking our passion into discussion with you on all things Cubs. We'll see how that passion played out over the weekend here in a little bit. Cubs win the series over the Marlins, but lost a marathon on Sunday in descending order here. They lost 5-4 and 14 on Sunday, ended up making a comeback for a victory of the 4-2 variety on Saturday. And then Friday, won pretty convincingly 4-1. Certainly a wild game Sunday. Was nothing until Gurriel put one in the basket off Wisniewski. Marlins later added another run off Boxberger and led 2-0 entering the ninth. The Marlins left Sandy Alcantara in, but the Cubs tied it. Unfortunately, could not capitalize, however, in extras and eventually lost 5-4. In 14. Sam, it was a wild weekend, and the Cubs end up 500.
Yeah, sometimes I like to, there's a lot to talk about, but sometimes in life there's more important things than the game of baseball. And what a beautiful job by Boog, Ryan Dempster, and McGregor for breaking down some random couple and their dating and how they met at Wrigley Field and dated in the middle of the eighth inning in a one-run ball game. So my goodness, great job. Anyway, look, we have to start with Sunday. It was just another heartbreaker.
Another one-run loss.
I can't believe this season, man.
8 of their 17 losses are by a run.
Yeah, they have the third best run.
Seems like more.
No, it's been really tough. Some of those losses out of the 17 don't end up one run. Like Saturday's win, for example. That's not a one-run win, but essentially it is. Essentially it is, right? You know what I mean? And they've had a lot of losses like that. Look, Saturday's game was gifted to you, and Schumacher tried to gift you Sunday's game. Alcantara was in about 2 hitters too long. It came back to hurt him. They tie the game, which was great. And, really came down to a couple of things for me why they lost this game. The bullpen was tremendous in high leverage spot, and applauds to them. Wisniewski was very good. The pitching on Sunday, you go Wisniewski, Fulmer, Boxberger, awful. Then you go Mark Leiter Jr. is quickly turning into one of the most valuable pieces on this ball club, and Alzolay, who was terrific, gave up a run on a ticky-tack ball call. But really what it came down to was 3 at-bats for me plus a managerial decision. The first at-bat was second and third, 1 out. I can't remember the innings. Forgive me. I don't remember if it was the 10th or the 11th.
Was it the Mancini?
I think it was the 11th. Yeah, the Mancini at-bat. Second and third.
That's really the bigger one that I thought. Yeah, it was a bottom 11.
Yeah, bottom 11, second and third, 1 out. I know people are anti-sack bunt, but when you're in a tie game and you get that runner to third, less than 2 outs, and you have a hitter you feel good about, you got to execute. They didn't do so. The second at bat would be Nick Madrigal in the 12th, man on second, no out. He strikes out after really was a good at bat. He fought off a ton of pitches, but just couldn't get the guy over. And then the last one was Mervis, man on second, no out, to lead off the 14th, which caused my knuckle. I punched a thing of glass at my mom's. And he popped out. But here's the key part. I want to transition to the managerial aspect of it. And by no means did David Ross cost the Cubs. Schumacher hurt his team more than Ross did. But just a small margin thing that decreased your chance of winning. He burned Miguel Amaya.
Right.
And burned Seiya Suzuki. To have Seiya Suzuki run at first base as the lead run when I thought he should have burned Suzuki to run for Mervis and leave him in the game when they were down a run.
Yeah, he was the lead run, but not the lead runner.
Right, exactly. And oh, by the way, ironically, Suzuki made a very small base running error. He was running on Nico Horner's game-tying single and froze. There's no need to freeze. If they catch the ball, you're doubled off regardless. He should have been on third base. And then you take Suzuki out because you have to, because you burn your catcher, and Barnhart ends up hitting in two massively key spots. And I think it really impacted Madrigal's at bat, and I think it really impacted Mervis's poor at bat, because in their heads, I don't think they thought that, they thought that they had to be a hero instead of just get the job done and move a runner over. And so it was just an overall bad performance. I don't want to say the Cubs didn't get the clutch hit, because they did get a few of them. They just didn't get enough.
Sure.
And I'll say this, Matt, and then I'll let you go Friday, Saturday. I'll say this. I'm extremely frustrated, and the Cubs haven't done a good enough job in close games. But if you don't think that there's a little bit of a luck element to this, the Marlins are now 11-0 in one-run games. They were terrible today, and they were terrible on Saturday late, okay? One of the reasons why the Cubs had so many chances to win is the Marlins didn't execute either, all right?
Right.
They left their pitcher too long. On Saturday, they lost balls in the sun. They made errors at first base. They didn't execute. The fact that they're 11-0 in one-run games, and the Cubs are, what are they, like 2-8 or something like that?
Correct.
It shows you that, yes, the Cubs need to be better in those spots, but there's also a little element of just like, come on, help us out here. Thought that Mancini ball, to left field had a chance to get over that guy's head. Just frustrating. I don't know what else to say. At least they won the series.
Yeah, and we'll break down Friday and Saturday, but I do think that, prior to Friday's action, I ended up tweeting about the Cubs and just pointing out that, really the only thing preventing them from succeeding or making a run is themselves. And I think right now the Cubs are beating themselves, whether that's managing, whether that's a base running miscue, whether that's a defensive mistake, whether that's the lack of a clutch hit. I am just not going to sit here and say the Marlins genuinely beat the Cubs on Sunday. I just don't agree with that, especially because with a runner on second to open the extra inning frame nowadays, there's a huge advantage to the home team, and they just couldn't do it. They had all those chances, and so I really believe strongly that even only 34 games in, and even only to me is in quotes. Before we hit record, we mentioned, hey, we're 1/5 of the way through the year. I don't think that's a small number. I mean, 20% of the year is, how many football games would that be? The NFL out of 17, 3, 4?
It's like 3.5, right?
Yeah, that's not. I wouldn't say it's a small number of games. We're over a month in now,
right?
And I think the Cubs are beating themselves. A lot of the 17 losses are due to that, if not every single one of those. And I thought the tide had turned. I did after Friday and Saturday. When they made that comeback Sunday, I thought for sure they were winning. So I walk out of there, not literally, it wasn't at the game, but walk out of that game Sunday, feeling just a little bit different than I thought. I thought it would be more of a celebration on this recording, and I don't find myself quite there yet. I do think they're beating themselves, and they began the homestand strong, holding the W flag in about as convincing fashion as you can, mostly thanks to Justin Steele, who went another 7 innings. Ian Happ, 2-run homer. And then Saturday, the Marlins led 2-1 most of the game, and the Cubs stormed back to win 4-2 in a chaotic 8th inning, highlighted by Madrigal. And then Amaya finally gets rewarded. So, they do win the series. I do think as we keep going in the show and preview Cubs Cardinals later, which I have a little bit of a longer opening to that segment as well, about a certain former catcher. I think this week is pivotal, but it was a chaotic weekend. I do have some concern about Drew Smiley, Sam. Maybe we could get to that in the Cubs Cards preview. But yeah, kind of a strange weekend.
Yeah, I think it's just, we record the show on Sunday night. They had a rough loss on Sunday. I would have taken 2 out of 3 before this. I thought they were gifted the game Saturday, and I thought they were gifted the comeback today. So I'm not like crazy angry,
right?
But it's an opportunity. Let's slip away. And look, I look at the season a lot different than most people, and that leads to a lot of people to disagree with me, which is beautiful. That's great. I mean, I have people on Twitter that literally every time I tweet tell me I'm full of myself. And I enjoy that. It's good. It's good dialogue. It's good. It's good for everybody to discuss, to argue. But the way I look at the season is I look at schedules, and I know which teams are tough, and I know which teams aren't. And I know the Cardinals, and we'll talk about this later, are struggling, but that's not going to be an easy series. We know that.
Right.
And this was a 10-game stretch against the Nats, the Marlins, and the Marlins, where you went 3-7, and that's a stretch that has to be at least 6-4, because if you just look ahead very briefly, we talked the Cardinals. You go to Minnesota, not overly difficult, not an easy series. You go to Houston, extremely difficult. You go to Philly, very difficult. You play the Mets at Wrigley, difficult. Then you get a break with the Reds. Then you play a team that might be one of the greatest teams of all time at Wrigley Field, the Tampa Bay Rays. And now listen to this, Matt. Yeah. 4 in San Diego, 3 against the Angels, and 3 against the Giants. I mean, on the road, all on the road.
Boy.
Like you wasted an opportunity to give yourself a lot of cushion. And at some point, and I told you this, I think, on the phone a couple of days ago. I said, I think this series, and even in Minnesota, they're going to plateau a little bit and hang in there. But after that's where I'm concerned, because you started out well, you dropped. Now you plateau a bit. If you drop again, now you're like 4 or 5 games under. So it's frustrating. I think right now, there's just some really key guys slumping that's making it difficult. Mainly Dansby Swanson and Seiya Suzuki. And I think Suzuki really wasn't slumping till this Marlins series. And then he was slumping before the National Series. He really was just terrible against the Marlins. So hopefully it's just something like that, because, he's leaving a lot of guys on. And I mean, Dansby, I think, was 0 for the game on Sunday in all of his at-bats. And when that's your 2-hitter and your 4-hitter, it's kind of hard to get something started.
Right.
So, you need to get those guys going. I thought Mervis gave him a nice lift in a really difficult landing spot for him. The Marlins have the most lefties I've ever seen in a bullpen, ever.
Yeah.
And so I'm expecting him to have a much more comfortable couple of days against Michaelis and Flaherty.
Yep.
And,
excited to see that.
There's definitely some good. But, it, again, just feels like the whole theme of the season, we sound like broken records, just leaving food on the table.
All right, well, let's go over some of those numbers then. We're also going to do some reliever rankings for the first time. We do that coming up with Hot and Cold. Stay tuned. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to the eBay Motors My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 120 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fits, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride with eBay Motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customer. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. The Cubs play the Cardinals at 6:40 p.m. Central Monday, and you can listen to every pitch with the Cubs hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. On the SXM app, search Cubs or tune in to channel 844 and catch the Cubs all season long on SiriusXM. Who's hot and cold over the last 7 days? A little bit of an offensive slant here, but we're going to get into some bullpen stuff as well. Sam, Ian Happ hit 333 this week, 8 for 24, 2 homers, 6 walks. Also had 2 MLB debuts this past week. Miguel Amaya finished 2 for 7 on the week with almost all hard contact. And Matt Mervis was 4 for 14 this past weekend. So nice to see those guys right in the mix. And even in the same lineup, 2 of those 3 games against the Fish. Nico Horner is cold right now, 7 for 30. That equates to a 233 average. Dansby Swanson about the same, 7 for 31 with 9 strikeouts. And then we have some freezer, visiting the freezer here with these next 2 guys. Patrick Wisdom, 2 for 17 with 11 strikeouts. And
Regression.
Nelson Velasquez, 0 for the week, 0 for 9.
So I'm glad you brought up Velasquez, and I'm glad you brought up Amaya because, and I want to preface this by saying I'd rather have him on the team than off because I just care about winning as much as you can. But Velasquez is a great example of why Jed would tell you, hey, this is why we don't want a guy being a fourth outfielder. We want him. He's not going to play a lot. He's just not playing a lot. And the same goes for Amaya. Everybody's going to be up in arms if he goes back down to AAA. And I think he's been tremendous this year. And I think really if you're looking long term, which probably we need to do a little bit more of as a show, if you're looking long term, that might be the best sign of the weekend because he looked great behind the plate defensively. But again, Yan Gomes is going to be the catcher when he comes back. So would you rather have Miguel Amaya just playing? Yes, I'd rather have him playing twice a week. But is that what's best for his long-term development? I don't know. And that's a problem the Cubs have, right? Like, and that goes to your point about Morel. Why is Morel not up? Well, where is he going to play? You know, the Cubs either need somebody to get hurt, and I don't mean that in a positive way, but like to open up a spot. Or if Wisdom continues to regress at this level, maybe he gets a chance. But there's not spots right now for these guys, and you don't want someone like Nelson Velasquez to just sit and watch all the time. And then he gets a spot start against who? Oh, Sandy Alcantara, who's going to be throwing 100 miles an hour on the corner. And a guy like Edwin Rios makes more sense to barely play because he's more of a veteran type of guy. He's an older type of guy.
Sure,
they should have addressed the fourth outfielder situation better, so you don't have to waste Nelson Velasquez as somebody in their mid-20s as a prospect as a fourth outfielder. When he's up, you want him playing. So we'll see what they do with Amaya. I mean, he's no questionably better than Barnhart. The question is will they want him to play, 2-3 times a week? I don't know. It's a great question. It's a great question to debate, but
it is. Yeah.
I didn't realize that he and Mervis, by the way, looked the part defensively this weekend.
Yeah, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would lean towards saying that playing twice a week isn't good for development. I think I've cooled my jets on that a little bit after this past weekend. And then I would say just especially at the catching position, I think that's a little bit different. So, if Amaya goes to AAA, like maybe he reports to Des Moines instead of Knoxville, I think that would be good for him. Yan Gomes likely to be activated. Well, he's eligible to come off on Wednesday. So
and I get it.
I would expect him to be activated Wednesday.
And as a fan, it's frustrating because you watch, you go, this guy's way better than Tucker Barnhart, right? It's frustrating, but it's also baseball is just tricky, man. It's a hard thing, and
Barnhart has a 2-year deal.
Oh, and so does Mancini.
So does Mancini.
Yeah.
Then I wanted to go through
2-year deal, dude.
I know. Through the 24 season?
Barnhart's supposed to be a defensive catcher. Everyone runs on him like I'm back there.
Yeah.
I mean, what is he good at?
Yeah, he blocks well. That's about it.
I mean,
he's a nice receiver as well.
Yeah, you're making $1 million a year. You should be able to block well.
Right. And excluding Assad for now, not really sure what his role is. Wanted to go through some bullpen rankings. So here's how I have the 7 relievers ranked right now.
Yeah.
You could do that in terms of leverage. You could do that really however you want.
Yeah.
I don't really care.
Okay.
Merriweather. This is obviously from the bottom up.
Yeah, but do you want me to wait till you're done or can I comment right away?
Okay, go ahead.
I think he hasn't given up a run in his last 7 outings. He's doing his job in his low leverage. There's no need for him to go anywhere.
Yeah, fantastic. Boxberger, second to last. Okay.
No, that was terrible today, man.
Fulmer.
Yeah, he's been better.
Thompson with the nice bounce back the other day, 3 scoreless. I have him in the middle there.
Yeah.
Somewhat of an unsung hero in the 2023 campaign for the Northsiders, Michael Rucker.
Yeah, I'd still have Thompson ahead of him.
And then Alzolay and Leiter in the 2 and 1 spots there in my reliever rankings.
Yeah, I think that's I'd flip Rucker and Thompson, and I think you're right. And I think Leiter and Alzolay have both earned opportunities to face their weak side. Like Leiter got a ton of righties out, Alzolay got a ton of lefties out today. And no, the bullpen was overall very good this weekend,
especially Saturday.
Yeah, the only issue you had was Boxberger on Sunday. So, back-to-back nice outings from Fulmer. I think Ross has done a nice job kind of easing him back after what was kind of a borderline traumatizing start to the campaign for him. And I think, Leiter Jr., man, I mean, that guy has just – I was so –
he's impressive.
When he got out of the 11th with no runs, I thought we were going to win this game. I was going to lead with him.
Yeah.
I was going to lead with
one of the best relievers in baseball would have been the headline.
And so he's been really good. I think when Hughes comes back, he fits right in. But those rankings are very interesting because they just show you that outside of maybe Leiter, they're all kind of the same guy. It's like in a week and a half, Fulmer could be number 2 again.
Maybe, yeah.
And that's just not great. Like to me, the best bullpen in baseball right now is Baltimore. And they have a guy named Felix Bautista in the 9th inning who's just as nasty as it gets. And then they have this guy, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, so forgive me. I think it's Yanner, and his last name's Cano.
Yes.
And it's like
they've been lights out, right?
The prerequisite of a great bullpen. Those guys get the 8th and 9th unless they're unavailable. That's it. And there are 2 best relievers, and then they have some other really good fillers. The Cubs is just kind of all fillers, but they need to get a clutch hit, Matt. Swanson needs to elevate the baseball. Suzuki needs
too.
Suzuki needs to hit for some power.
Yeah.
He has 1 home run.
Right. I can't really add much to that.
No, well, you got a lot of heat for
gotten some trouble the other day.
Yeah, you got some. Yeah, folks. By the way,
and I owned up to it, and I was thinking about I'm going to go on another hiatus, and I didn't. I was.
I tweet from my account, which is at Sam Olver. Matt typically tweets from the Locked On Cubs. So if you ever, because I got a couple messages about that too. Talk to him about that. Right. Okay. I didn't tweet that, all right? And by the way,
I might stop tweeting, by the way.
And by the way, I supported that tweet because that was ridiculous. The amount of guys, he was leaving more guys on than anybody I've seen. He's hitting cleanup. Start delivering, okay? The honeymoon phase is over.
Yeah, and it goes to show how good the comeback was. I looked it up today. After he struck out, the win probability was 19%.
And you could thank the Marlins for that.
Okay, I'll send them a thank you.
The win probability goes up when the first baseman drops the ball and a right fielder gets hit in the kneecap by a pop-up.
The Cubs return to NL Central action this week, and we preview that.
Oh, boy.
Coming up next. Locked On Cubs is now on SiriusXM, and you can listen to every pitch this season with the Cubs hometown broadcast on SiriusXM using the SXM app. Welcome back to Locked On Cubs. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Cubs Cardinals this week, a 6:40 Central first pitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before the Northsiders have an off day on Thursday. It's going to be Stroman versus Michaelis, Tyone versus Flaherty, and Steele versus Montgomery. So I just want to go through some Cardinals pitching numbers right now.
Yes.
Starting pitching. Cardinals have a 5.33 ERA, batting average against 295, and they've allowed 28 home runs, almost a home run a game. Again, this is starting pitching, 5.3 ERA, 295 batting average against 28 homers. They are doing very poorly. And they have blamed it on catcher, now former catcher, Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, man.
Who signed this past offseason, if you recall, for 5 years, 87 M's. And on Saturday, the Cardinals announced that Contreras will no longer be catching due to his inability to do several things an everyday catcher is supposed to do. So he is now going to mostly DH and occasionally sprinkle some innings in left field. This is a major story. This is validation for Sam Olber. This is validation for Jed Hoyer. This guy can't catch, and a major league club is now saying that he can't catch. Literally, he's not going to catch. Also, the Cardinals have one of the worst records in the game. Sam?
Yeah, I am not going to be taking a victory lap on Contreras. I'm taking an apathy lap. I do not care. I do not want to talk about Contreras. If you're going to tweet, if he hits a ball on the Waveland Avenue tomorrow and he taunts about it and goes crazy and calls the Cubs the worst organization ever, miss me with it. Don't care. He's not worth my energy and time. As I've said on this show many times, when I become apathetic about you, that means I've lost my care. I do not. That player is not worth my time. If he gets a standing ovation, great. If he doesn't, great. If they boo him, great. I don't care. Okay. I am. And if you want to clip this and tweet it, I think it'd be great for our show. Great. Great. I do not care about Wilson Contreras at all. He means nothing to me. Great job by him. He had a nice couple big hits in 2016. I know some fans love him. I know some hate him. I do not care. He is meaningless to me. Now, getting into the series. This is a series that scares me. You know what I'm going to say, Matt. When you're playing,
at least they won Sunday.
Yes, when you're playing a team that is as good as the Cardinals, and they are off to a bad start by no means, they have very good players littered around the diamond offensively. Arenado, Goldschmidt, Donovan, Contreras. They have a lot of good offensive players, and they have not hit. They have not pitched. This is a rivalry game, a series. This will be a difficult series. Monday night is very important for the Cubs because this loss was tough on Sunday. Get back on the winning track. You're facing Michaelis, who hasn't been good. Flaherty looks broken. And Montgomery, He's
been fine.
Montgomery, you faced 3 times last season. You did not score 1 run against him.
No, he dominated them.
And just a very weird year for Marcus Stroman against the Cards. So last year, June 3rd at Wrigley Field, he gives up 10 hits and 9 earned runs in 4 innings. But then his next 2 starts at the new Busch Stadium, he goes 6 2/3, 3 earned, and 7 shutout. So very, very kind of up and down year, but didn't fare well at Wrigley. Hope he has a nice start tomorrow. I think if the Cubs could just bank in that Monday night win, that would make things a lot easier for the rest of the series. I don't expect a sweep, but it would be really beneficial to win that series, get back over 500 and move forward. The Cubs are hefty -155 favorites going into that tilt.
All right, so 6:40 first pitch each of those 3 days.
You can miss me with the Contreras stuff. Enough already. He's worthless. Move on.
And we'll be here every day. So shout out to the everydayers who are with us all 5 episodes throughout the week. And you can become an everydayer as well by checking us out each and every weekday. We'll break down Cubs Cardinals every day this week, preview other stories, break down some news, including Kyle Hendricks pitches again this week. Cody Hoyer pitches again this week. I believe he was hit 99 the other night, Sam.
That's good news.
So we'll sprinkle in all of that and a whole lot more. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for Locked On Cubs on YouTube and smash the like button for the algorithm, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast on the audio side. Another week. Let's hope the Cubs do well. He's Sam Olber.
Breaking.
I'm Matt Cozy. This is Locked On Cubs.